It finally happened. Ryan Day has named a starter at tight end. Cade Stover will start for the Buckeyes on September 2nd against Indiana. That's the 40-year vet Tim May. That's Andy Backstrom. I'm just playing, guys. He really did say that. But trying to find new ways to start these videos, it's always a fun challenge for me. And I heard that, and I was like, I'm going to have some fun with the folks. Again, Andy, Tim, Spencer, let's talk Buckeyes. Ryan Day just delivered a 48-minute address to the media. Took a lot of questions. Still no starter at quarterback. We officially have Travion Henderson apparently starting at running back. He's got things to say about the defensive line, the offensive line, just a wide range of topics to talk about after the Buckeye scrimmage on Saturday. Happy Ryan Day did this today rather than Wednesday. Big takeaway, Tim, from just the press conference overall from Ryan Day today.
That he likes the fact that Josh Fryer and Luke Montgomery have flipped over to the right side of the offensive line like we saw in Friday's full practice we got to watch, and it looks like that's going to stay that way. With Josh Call Me Jimmy Simmons at left tackle, and it looks like Tigger Shabola probably over on that side also working. We'll see how that goes, but that stands out. And then, of course, as our friend Andy Backstrom has just posted about the news of the day being Bennett Christian is out for the year because of use of a banned substance that was found in the NCAA test, obviously around the college football playoff time. Is what you conjecture there. He's been apologetic about it and understands the situation, has put out a statement on it. And then losing Court Williams with an ACL injury. I mean, the guy's coming back from 3 shoulder surgeries, and then he goes out with an ACL injury for the rest of the season. Yeah, so, wow. Court Williams is one of the great guys we've met on this beat. I don't know if you agree or not, but I will stand by that statement, and your heart goes out to that young man.
I was going through some old stuff of Court Williams just to gather, because two-time captains who don't play, it doesn't happen very often. Ryan Day said when Court Williams committed to Ohio State and signed at Ohio State, he said, I'll be stunned if Court Williams isn't a captain here by the time it's all said and done. He's already been that. Yeah. He means a lot to that locker room, and I think that's a bigger loss than maybe we're even giving it credit for as we stand here right now.
It's a loss on the playing field. He's still going to be around.
Yeah, but I think that really sucks for Court Williams, and I think I'll just leave it at that. Andy, your big takeaway from today with Ryan Day?
Well, one of the things coming out of that injury for Court Williams is that now they have some flexibility with that linebacker position, and also Arvell Reese is a true freshman that's already impressed, and they said that they like him at defensive end. They've been playing him there the last week, but they might need him back at linebacker due to the depth potential concerns now that they lose Court Williams, who converted from safety to linebacker. I would say the big takeaway, though, quarterbacks we haven't mentioned yet, and obviously that's everyone wants to know who's the starting quarterback. And right now, there's still no answer to that. There might not even be an answer by the end of the week. It seems like right now it's still up and down play, some good things, some bad things. They're working through situational football, such as third down, red zone, in the scrimmage. Again, Ryan Day said he liked some things he saw, and then there were some other things that were a little bit inconsistent. And right now he's looking for a guy to make the routine plays routinely and not turn over the ball, and that's really all he's looking for. You don't need to be extraordinary. You just need to do the ordinary things very well.
I think you become extraordinary when you get into this offense. You get the keys handed to you because of the weapons around you, because if you do enough to be named the starter, you're going to end up, continually progressing and doing that. And I think that's where Ryan Day's probably going at with that is, he's not ready to name one yet. You can tell that he's kind of itching to do so. I think that he's getting a little antsy. He wants to do it. And maybe that just comes with, being a guy, getting a feel for who's in the lead and who in his brain. For all we know, he could be just lying his pants off to us. So, but I think, he is a little antsy to name a starter. Yeah. He just can't do it just yet.
What's funny, though, is that, Jerry Emick keeps track of how many questions are asked during these press conferences. I think he said 46 today. At least a good third of them were in some form or fashion about the quarterback.
Yeah.
For obvious reasons. You've got this, we keep calling it this really nice sports car, high-end sports car, Formula One car that somebody's going to drive. You built what you think is a pretty good car. He really likes the way the offensive line is coming along, for example, and stuff. But who's going to drive this thing? Obviously, we all want to know the answer to that. And you feel kind of odd asking those questions continually, because if he says he hadn't made up his mind, and he's kind of giving you the reasons why, then you're always, even I asked him, I said, do you have and I was asking last, do you have a situation where you're going to make up your mind at the end of the day and then sleep on it? And he kind of indicated he's kind of done that a few times, with this race, because it is, in many respects, too close to call, because who's really good right now, but who do you see being really good at the end of the year? Is it the same guy? Is the same guy going to keep making progress? So all these things are going on in his brain. And then on top of it is they haven't played that quarterback hasn't faced live competition this year. Obviously both of these guys got into games last year and stuff. It's not the same as when you're running the show. So I can understand Ryan Day not being frustrated, but you want to get to that answer sooner rather than later, but you don't want to make the bad call there, because like he even admitted to when I asked him about it, when you name that guy, you want him to be the guy, not just the guy for the first game. So this may go into the season.
I don't know. It's getting interesting.
We know who your leader is.
I still think he's leading the battle. I think it is Kyle McCord's job still to lose.
I think we all think he's probably leading in some respects.
And that's, we've had good discussions about that before, but at the end of the day, we all come to the same conclusion. Yeah. And I think that is where it ultimately ends up going with Ryan.
War Admiral and Seabiscuit were right next to each other on the backstretch when they raced in their match race, and then Seabiscuit took off. So maybe this is that moment. Maybe this is the backstretch of this race.
We need to get a gambling sponsor, Tim, if we're going to start talking about horse racing, I guess.
Get into modern times here, absolutely.
Yeah, maybe we'll just have to take a trip down to Churchill Downs. For now, we're going to stay in the Woody Hayes Athletic Center. I asked about defensive line. That was one of the first questions, and I was really antsy to ask about Tywone Malone, and I did, and he's starting to impress. I think he's starting to catch the eye of Ryan Day, a bunch of different guys in this building. Tywone Malone's going to play. I'm way more confident in saying that now than I was at this time 2 weeks ago when the Buckeyes kicked off camp. The more Tyleik Williams is out, the more opportunity it gives for Tywone Malone to continue to take those reps from him. We did get an update on Tyleik Williams that Ryan Day said he expects to have him back soon. What does that mean? I don't know. He also said that Mayan Williams was going to be back soon because he wasn't out there on the practice field Friday. But back to the defensive line.
He was in the scrimmage on Saturday in some respects, as he mentioned it.
Yeah. So it's just an interesting dynamic with these injuries right now. But the bottom line is, the longer Tyleik Williams is out, the longer Tywone Malone takes those reps and continues to look impressive. And I started to talk about it a little bit on Friday. I'm not ready to just throw dirt on Tyleik Williams. I'm not ready to bury him on the depth chart. But I'm also willing to listen if you're going to tell me that maybe that top three on the defensive line is the tide's starting to turn toward Tywone Malone and Ty Hamilton and Mike Hall rather than Tyleik Williams in there with those top two. I'm willing to listen because I think Tywone Malone looks really good, and the best ability for Tyleik Williams right now is availability. He's not out there.
Well, I don't know how much it really matters because they're all probably going to play 400 plus snaps anyway.
Yes.
They're all going to rotate in some capacity. I think the most important thing is that we've seen 2 open practices, and in both of those practices we've seen Tywone Malone step up. The first time it was Tyleik Williams that went down. Then on Friday we got to see the practice and Mike Hall was limited, and then we saw Tywone Malone come in and slide next to Ty Hamilton. So consistently stepping up, stacking those kinds of days, as they like to say in this building, is something that will definitely do Tywone Malone a lot of good. And he's someone that's already played 2 seasons of football in the SEC. Now, that was limited football, but I do think that making that transition, focusing solely on football, is helping him there. And that whole defensive line, I think the big difference between last year and this year is the experience, the maturation. Even for the defensive ends, JT Tuimoloau, Jack Sawyer having another full season have had significant contribution. I think there's really a confidence in this defensive front.
It's not just that Tywone Malone has slid in for those guys who get a little hobbled or maybe out. It's that he goes in there, and when he is in there, he looks good. Yeah. It's one thing to slide in there. If one guy goes down, it's one thing to just take that spot and just be there. It's another thing to take that spot and in your first 3 reps or first 2 reps, you're in the backfield, or you're making a guard miss. The play's behind you, but you're making the guard miss as he tries to block you. Tywone Malone is doing the things, I think, that lead you down a path of playing time. And I wasn't sure how raw he would be coming in, but I think he's exceeded the expectations of what I had for him as of the 14th of August. And I think that means that he's going to continue to get better as we go along here through training camp. What do you think, Tim?
And as Ryan Day answered your question, he brought up the factor, the word for this football team this year, I figured out, is the word consistency.
Yep.
That's what they're looking for from a defensive standpoint overall. That's what they're looking for from the quarterbacks in this last stretch of the quarterback battle. That's what they're looking for from the offensive linemen the guys who are going to be starting new on the offensive line is, some of them are looking pretty good, but are they doing it on a consistent basis? And it's definitely that way with Tywone Malone and Mike Hall. And it's more of consistency, like you said, consistently being available to put on that big flash, to make it more of a strobe than a flash. And I think they're going to be pretty, barring a lot of injury, I think they're going to be pretty damn good on the defensive front this year, if in fact that consistency factor comes along for those guys in the middle. Ty Hamilton seems to have caught no one's wrath. I mean, I think he's going to be a mainstay in the middle of that defensive line. But who are going to be the guys that really just crank the wheel? Tywone Malone and Mike Hall have both shown that capability, in my opinion, through the first part of camp. And like you said, the use of Arvell Reese on the edge, whether he'll go back to linebacker or not, I think they got plenty of linebackers, from what I can tell. Just bringing those guys along. Everybody's wondering about the edge situation here and the recruiting of edge players. Sometimes they emerge out of nowhere. I mean, you could count Sonny Styles maybe as an edge player on this team, the way they're going to possibly use him. Mitchell Melton, they're almost doing away with the jack in the classic sense of the jack position, which is what Jim Knowles had back at Oklahoma State. I mean, you're going to see maybe C.J. Hicks and occasionally Sonny Styles playing that jack position. In my opinion, from what I've seen. But I think their edge situation is pretty good right now.
The interesting thing is I'm going to go back to 2020 and 2021 and 2022 and just stay on this defensive line. We've seen flashes, and that's about all you can say. For years, the flashes from Teron Vincent were there. The flashes from Jerron Cage were there. It was never consistent. Right. For years, the flashes from Tyreek Smith were there. Baron Browning was there. Jonathan Cooper was there. And Zach Harrison I put in that category. It was never consistent. Tommy Togiai, the flashes were there. Was it ever consistent? No. Last year with Mike Hall, it wasn't consistent, but there's an injury there. Tyleik Williams has been maybe the most roller coaster player over the last 2 years on this defense. Them honing in on consistency is the best case for defensive improvement that I know of right now in this building, because they've fielded a lot of guys who have flashed. They have not fielded many on that defensive line in the last 3 years that have been consistent. And if you can get consistency there, that's huge. They found it last year at linebacker. They found it from Lathan Ransom at safety. They found it in Denzel Burke at corner for the most part. Those positions are pretty locked up. That defensive line, you need consistency. Consistency is going to be the name of the game for this defense, Andy. And you haven't had it, and I think that's the biggest thing. They finally realize they can't just have the guys who are flashing in practice be out there. They have to have the guys who are consistent.
Well, yeah, and I agree with Tim's point. It all comes back to this is the theme of the whole team, quarterback too. But I think also go back to what Tim said about players that you recruit at one position, play a different position. G. Scott is another one of those guys. Came in as a wide receiver, highly ranked wide receiver, now playing tight end. Joe Royer has not been practicing as much in training camp recently, dealing with some sort of injury. We don't know what that is.
Yeah, even on Friday we were seeing him dealing with it.
Right, but G. Scott has stepped up in that absence, and someone that Ryan Day talked about has been excelling potentially for that tight end 2 spot behind Cade Stover there. And really, talk about the offensive line along with that tight end group. Ryan Day is pretty content right now what's going on with the offensive line. It seems like our conversation about all offseason is boiling down to around 4 players right now outside of the center conversation. You have at right tackle, you have Luke Montgomery and Josh Fryer, and at left tackle you have Tegra Shabola as well as Jimmy Simmons. So I think
but
now...
they flipped them.
Yes, well, those are where they are now, and it seems like those are where they're staying at that point.
No, I'm saying they flipped. They got Josh Fryer. You said left tackle. They're at right tackle.
Yeah,
and he maybe I misunderstood you.
It's all good.
I thought, okay.
No, yeah, I got you. But yes, they have flipped them. So Josh Fryer is on the right side, and Jimmy Simmons is on the left side. Yeah. But they've gotten that sorted out, and that's the big thing.
Yeah.
The alignment of the offensive line. And the only thing we have to figure out now is also with center, who is it going to be, Carson Hinsman or Victor Cutler?
Ryan got a weird look on his face when he got asked about
He was asked about the center competition. He was not ready to name a center either. But you feel like there's 2 guys at each of those vacancies now. Whereas before, we were talking about 3, 4, 5 guys. We didn't know which side they were playing.
Or maybe sometimes, at one point we were talking about one guy like at left tackle.
Yeah.
Luke Montgomery was coming on. Now Luke Montgomery's coming on at right tackle behind Josh Fryer.
So long story short, there is a little bit more certainty of where guys are going to be, and it's a 2-person conversation for each of those positions.
And they got to feel pretty good about the offensive line. I mean, you've got Enoch Vimahi returning as a standard backup there for the guard spots, in my opinion. I think this offensive line is slowly, even where we're not getting to watch it all, the cake is rising, you know what I mean, from the standpoint of the depth situation where they may feel pretty good about 7 or 8 guys that they can play there. And, like when y'all were talking about ago, the reason you brought up the word consistency, because you got tough love there and you got fight down there on the line, and maybe they'll put consistency back up there, because in preseason camp, that is, boy, once you get over that hump, you might have something going pretty good for this football team.
Yeah, I would, as of right now, I would say Josh Fryer will be the starting right tackle, because Josh Fryer starts at such a great point of advantage from Luke Montgomery. That's not to say Luke hasn't done a great job. I think he's definitely one that they're going to feel confident about on the twos. But again, Tim just brings up Enoch. If Victor Cutler's pushing Carson Hinsman the way that we are led to believe, then you feel good about your backup center. You probably feel good about your backup right tackle with Luke Montgomery. If Tegris Shabola is pushing Jimmy Simmons the way that we think he is, you probably feel decent about your backup left tackle. So if you have a swing guard, a good backup center, and 2 good backup tackles, hey, you're onto something.
That's what I said. 7 or 8 guys, man. You got something going.
And so I think that this offensive line, I'm much more confident right now than I was a week ago with this offensive line because of what that guy in there just said. That was Ryan Day, by the way. The 40-year vet Tim May was there. Andy Backstrom was there. Spencer Holbrook was there. We were covering it all for LettermanRow.com like we do every day. 365 days a year covering the Buckeyes. We never stop. You can continue to get information there at LettermanRow.com. Go subscribe today. We'd love to have you in the Letterman Lounge, chilling in the message board. Maybe we'll even get Tim in there for a Q&A at some point. But for now, we're going to go cover this team. That's Tim May, the 40-year vet. That's Andy Backstrom. I am just Spencer Holbrook. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We'll see you back in this very building tomorrow for a lot more coverage coming your way of Ohio State training camp.